This is the second intro I just filmed for a Q&A where you ask me questions and I'm going to answer them because I forgot to record the audio. So I put a post today on YouTube and I said, I'm going to do a Q&A and I want you guys to ask me questions, get a little setup going before I get the studio properly dialed. Yeah, so that's what this is going to be. We got some good questions and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I've been doing, why I missed an upload. That reason is what I've been working on today for coming on 12 hours, the ritebooks.com, my bookstore. We're killing it. We're doing great. I think we're like the #1 player in the niche. So that's kind of why I've been so busy and the videos have taken a bit of a backseat, but my editor and I, we've dialed the thumbnail game, I think, the titles, scripting. So there are many, many more videos coming down the pipeline.
Just in the middle of filming a video.
Sorry about that. Somebody actually just placed an order. Let's see. Thank you. I'm not going to dox you. Also, a little preliminary update. If any one of you guys has placed an order, thank you. My humblest merchant, thanks to you. But we had a ton of issues with our supplier. Books are a very hard thing to retail or just in general do with e-commerce. So you have a lot of issues with payment processing for a lot of the stuff that we are adamant that we carry because of free speech and believing in intellectual freedom and freedom of the press. That being said, we had like 3 or 4 stockouts where we just had too much demand and we couldn't get stock quick enough from our suppliers and there was holdups. And anyway, that is fixed now. I've made a huge personal investment, probably the largest I have in my life, and it's really working. So thank you to you guys for that. Now, without further ado, let's get into some of these questions. I was thinking like, what are we going to do here? Am I going to be like Assault Sneeko Groiper said this? So I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you guys your anonymity and we're just going to read these questions. So the first one we have is, what got you into philosophy? What got me into philosophy, I was kind of into it in high school, as everyone is, the greats. And then, you know, you just like read a little bit of philosophy and, you know, you're LARPing and maybe you watch videos. And then I started to really read in university. I took courses and then started watching videos and then I just read a ton. I did it in a very opposite way to people. I think a lot of people would think Nietzsche is too intense or hard to read or aphoristic, but I already read a lot in my personal life and academically just very different things. I got super into Nietzsche and then read Schopenhauer and then kind of the canon, like I say, the Western canon of things that are culturally, historically, or politically significant to Western history. I would say making content is what got me into philosophy because I had a reason to kind of implement it in my life and share the ideas with other people. So you could maybe say experiencing tribulation, trials, discomfort maybe. I've always had a very striving suit. I've always wanted to be better, to think better, to be smarter, maybe thought I was better than other people. That's a bit on the reasons of why I got into philosophy. Do you feel the world is shifting in the right or wrong direction? Love the videos, man. Keep it up. Thank you for the love. I will keep it up. And do I feel like the world is shifting in the right or wrong direction? See, I have kind of an interesting answer here because in many ways you could say no. I do believe and say, if you watch my videos, this is not a political channel. We don't really talk about politics. We talk about what's behind politics and the philosophy, big civilizational idea creation type of works. It's not like we're doing cultural commentary on political debates or issues or the Iran war or something. Although I did do a little bit of that before. But that being said, I think that it is probably shifting in the right direction, but not the way that you would think. I don't talk about it a lot. So I think that you guys probably wouldn't get this about me, but I'm sort of hard to pin down. If you look at me responding to you guys in the comments, I'm not in like the Christian nationalist crowd. I'm definitely not a leftist. I'm not a communist or Marxist. I'm not really a socialist. I'm also not a neoliberal capitalist. I think I can kind of engage with a lot of different ideas. And I generally like to speak to smart people in any of those regards. And then in my personal life, I am pretty capitalist. I like business and I view it as a metric to exert my will upon the world. Whatever that might be, you'll never know yet. So I think that's very Nietzschean. I don't think that it could be boiled down into a bucket. I'll give the right direction it could be going and the wrong direction it could be going. The wrong direction, and where you might call me a leftist here, is we are kind of destroying the planet. If you have any connection to blood or soil, to your people, to your history, you're going to love the place that you come from. You're going to love the soil, the mountains, the beauty, all of it. And so thinking that way, why would you have this reckless disregard for the environment that we should just destroy it? Now, that being said, I'm very pro utilization of natural resources. We really should extract as much energy of the planet as we can and use that excess of energy to build more dense forms of energy, better forms of energy. You know, we all want to become a type type 1 civilization and conquer the stars. And that gets me into the right direction. I'm kind of game for this techno-fash, colonize the stars type of idea. Now, just wait, don't click off and hate me. Richard Spencer, one of the people that I would throw their name out and might sound crazy, but Richard is actually really smart. And anyone that listens to him, or him, if he was seeing this, he'd be like, well, you, of course I am. So I'm not saying anything novel, but I do think a lot of you guys probably don't know who Richard Spencer is. That's kind of why I say it. He has this high IQ, strong, I would say Faustian, civilizational drive. He's not like a petty nationalist, a blood and soil nationalist, which, like we said, that's emotionally driven. And yeah, I have those feelings, of course. You want to see your people, you want to see your country, your nature, and you love it. But that's an emotional concern. I wouldn't say that's a higher drive. A higher drive is like, I believe that humanity can and will become something better. And if it's not, I will progress us to those ends. So I like what Spencer has to say about it, and Guillaume Fay has some very interesting things to say about that as well. Archaeofuturism. I love Italian futurism and that kind of stuff. So I actually think that progress, especially technological development, is a good thing. But it is going to be, in the age of AI and technology and all these things, I think it's going to be the most extractive environment that human history, let's say Western history, has ever had. You think that feudal aristocracy was bad, the medieval ages were bad, kings and queens and monarchy, it's not even close. The level of wealth extraction that can occur from a 10x person or a 100x person, because we're getting to that level with a lot of these tools, you can work so much quicker and set up systems to extract value from markets. Things like scalp trading, day traders and stuff. You're not producing any service or any good. It's pure speculation. There's nothing more to say. There's no intrinsic benefit to someone else that you're providing value for. So that's kind of the end nature of capitalism. And that's going to get so much crazier with AI and modern algorithms, specifically ads-based algorithms. That's just how it is. It's going to be like that. But I'm not going to talk about accelerationism, but it is a concept that if you wanted change to fruit, if you wanted something to happen, if you wanted an opportunity to have a mark on history, you do want to exist in a dynamic age. So I'm incredibly grateful that I exist now in this present moment as I am with the skills I have, doing the things I'm doing. I'm incredibly happy about that. But that relates more to my projects like software and e-commerce outside of philosophy in my YouTube videos. This will kind of stay like as you guys know me now. And the bookstore, passion project that I think is great. And eventually, I haven't talked about this, but I think I hinted at it a bit in the YouTube post, is I want to turn it into like an art collective for our guys or any people really. I would say you have to be cool and have aura and make good stuff. It can't be garbage and it also can't be like degenerate, but anything higher striving. I got the idea from rewatching the video I made about Schopenhauer and Nietzsche, 2 black pill videos about how to go from the black pill to white pill. And it's like, okay, we're all black pilled. Like the black pill is real. I met the king black pillar. I completely agree with him on pretty much everything. The only difference I would have is just on an individual basis, what am I going to do? Sorry, that was a very long answer. Let's move on. Actual life fuel videos, man. How does Ernst Junger, in detail, explain the path of escape in a subjective nihilistic existence? So it's important to acknowledge, if you read Junger, it's not the same as reading someone like Nietzsche, or even reading Mishima, or even the more esoteric artistic stuff about vitality, because Junger actually lived through this. So Storm of Steel, which we sell at theritebooks.com, by the way, with a very cool cover. I like that cover the best. Junger lived through 2 wars. He was one of the first shock troops, which is also like cool. He was part of the ideation of then what later became, we all know what they became, but a very interesting war strategy and progression. That stuff's cool. World War I was talked about as the Nietzschean War by some young German men who were becoming very nationalistic and viewed it as another episode of the Franco-Prussian War. But that aside, Junger is in the same way that a lot of people get the Nietzsche quote wrong, God is dead. I think he calls it subjective nihilism. The world is nihilistic in nature. His anarch is a man that's moving around in a clearly nihilistic world, but it's nihilistic subjectively based on how you interpret it. Specifically about war and psychedelics. He viewed them both very philosophically as confrontation with this annihilation. War strips your ego, time changes, he says, and you can almost feel elements, and they're real. Basically just that war strips life back from the bourgeois comforts and intellectualism and reading and all the transcendence you can get there, back to its raw, most primal essence based on your drives. And therefore he found both vitality and meaning in this crazy scenario, which is the first approach to confront this annihilation, which he lived 2 times and accepted excelled. Clearly, the way he writes, he thrives in this environment, which Storm of Steel, it's basically his war diary that has aphorisms and like a literary tone to it. I don't know if he wrote like that while he was in the trenches, but he describes real events that are unfolding in his life. Then his second approach, which I'm not as familiar with, and there's a lot of interesting things here, but I don't have experience with psychedelics. I'm more of a stim guy. I like to get on the amphetamines like some people throughout history. Sorry. And just like work for the mission. So regardless, you also confront this annihilation and kill your ego and strip away a lot of your sensory feeling and obfuscation by this world in the second approach, which is psychedelics through hallucination. And he felt that it took you to a sacred lost age. But I don't really know much about that. So again, if you want to read Junger's book, Ritebooks.com. Later in his book, Wahlganger, The Forest Rebel, and sorry for any German fans, he directly says what you should do. And it's like quiet, rebellion, the anarch. I have a video on Junger, just watch it. Go watch the video if you want to learn more about Junger. Which philosophers, psychologists, historical figures, or public figures have had the biggest impact on you, your ideas, and the way you think? I think I got into this already, but the obvious answer would be Nietzsche, followed by, I don't know if I would call him a philosopher, but Bap. I'm a big Bap, Costin, Glazer. And he follows me, so just, whatever. But follows a lot of handsome people, so is it because I'm handsome or because I'm smart and have good ideas? I don't know. But that changed my mind a lot because it took me out of lacking direction a little bit, because I did feel like I was above or smarter than and didn't engage in a lot of the populist political combat. So I was always interested in philosophical development of politics. Wanted to write that, hence my series. And so psychologist Jung, I think Freud is really interesting to read too. I took psych AP in high school, so I was very interested in psychology, especially interacting with people on their psychological terms and understanding human psychology. You can call it manipulative or whatever, but still use those principles today. And they're really important too in other areas of life, like business, marketing, of course, obviously girls, and then public figures. I think that the person I most admire ever is probably Otto von Bismarck, because I do have a huge innate tendency and drive that is, I don't want to say political, but I like the idea of empire. I know that to project power in any way, there has to be a centralized system of engineering and delivery of power and goods and trade and services and systems and an architecture of the state. So I'm attracted to big states and men who are able to architect these states and lead them. They are changing the course of history, men of history. And I think Otto von Bismarck did that even more so than Napoleon. Napoleon was more successful in conventional warring terms, but Otto von Bismarck was just goated at building a state. He didn't even really so much care about war. People think that he went to war with France and it's like, oh, Franzosen. We all like to shit on French people. But he didn't go to war with France because he was just like German revanchism or whatever. That was not the point of nationalism. It was just to build the biggest state possible, to project power and more so centralized power and fuel that power to what was not going to be a colonial empire. The only reason that he wanted a colonial empire was so that his people, who were, one, causing problems, two, lacking economic opportunity, and three, wanted a warmer place to live, they could push them out in the same way that England did to America or the French did or whatever. They just wanted to retain their people under one roof, I guess. That's why they wanted colonies. And I guess you could say resources, and everyone was doing it. But they would have been perfectly fine, I think, to stay as just the central power, to have a trade federation or whatever. Anyway, I think Otto von Bismarck was just incredibly interesting, very smart, very psychologically adept. The Prussian spirit I admire so much, of discipline, vitality, hierarchy, understanding of one's place in society, but yet still striving to ascend that place. But not in the sense that I've been done wrong by society and I want revenge against society. It's my duty. It's a challenge. War for the sake of war. Junger, right? And it's vital and it's normal and it's... Anyway, I'm LARPing really hard. I've never been to war, so take that with a grain of salt. And to any of you guys who have been in a war, thank you, I guess. Anyways, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe veterans think about that differently. Or maybe they like it. I don't know. I should really move on. I'm yapping way too much. Who is your favorite philosopher? What's your opinion on Schopenhauer? And how does it feel to be a Chad? Who's my favorite philosopher? I've referenced this now, I feel like a billion times. It's my only answer here. The video should just be like, I love Nietzsche. Nietzsche is my goat. That should be the video. But no, Nietzsche. It has to be. Why? Because I innately felt, I'm not going to self-glaze here or give myself up too much, but I did really feel like I came to some very similar conclusions from first principles, which is very unique. And I've never had that with anything else. I've always had to like rationally convince myself of contusions or issues in my thinking or other people's thinking. The innate desire for man to be something more, for man to evolve. I've always liked genetics, selective breeding, and you marry a pretty girl, ideal features, you're gonna have mager sons. That's definitely a project of mine. You will see them. Maybe you'll go to school with them. So from first principles, yeah, I would say Nietzsche. But I'm not really like a philosophy student. I think that that's the vibe that my channel has now, but I tried to put the videos in a direction, like you've never heard this angle of philosophy before. This angle of Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, Plato. They did not like democracy. They did not like soft political involvement. They did not like populism. And they were people that were operating at so much of a higher level of intellect, vitality, and then cultural and societal belonging. They're nowhere near comparable to political people we have nowadays, or even your own political thoughts. They're not thinking in terms of compromise and strategy, and I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. What the does that even mean? It means nothing. They're both liberals. Get that in your head. They're both liberals. The United States, the Western world, is a liberal democratic system. Both people on both sides, even if you want to call them far right or far left, they believe in liberal democracy. End case. They're all liberals. Now that we got that out of the way, I didn't really talk about Schopenhauer. I think if you want to learn and read about Schopenhauer, because he's very related to the black pill, and I think it can give you a lot of catharsis. When I was super deep into the black pill, I mean, like this guy says, I'm a Chad, so whatever, I shouldn't have to worry about that. But I was kind of considering and thinking about it, and was on like .org 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even years ago. But I guess luckily for me, like, I didn't engage with it too much, and then my genetics kind of caught up with me, and then I got into vitalism in the gym and stuff and whatever. I know it doesn't look like it right now. I'm pins as fuck, but because I've been working so hard. So I wouldn't be a fan necessarily of ascetic withdrawal. That to me rings a bit of a bell of the cabin in the woods type of vibe, and it's not my vibe. I think we need to engage. I think we need to, I'm not going to say the word for when you put your foot on the gas pedal. I'm not going to say the word. But I am a fan of dynamism. And so above all, I like that things are happening. It means there's opportunities, there's power gaps, and there's chinks in armor. And above all, there is opportunity for personal ascension, which is what should be on the forefront of your mind. You can consider high ideals, a state ideal, a political ideal, a moral ideal, a religious ideal, but your daily actions usually won't reflect that. Your ability to affect change, to shape the reality of the world in the outline of that ideal, that is really what you should be doing. That's what gives you power. That is doing something in service to your ideals, rather than just holding them and debating people about them and getting, like political points. What is voting? Voting is at the end of the day points. I win the game. I have the most points. Okay, well, I want to win next time. Let's redo the game in 4 years. I thought that was kind of funny. And how does it feel to be Chad? Yeah, I could cope. I could give you a moralist answer, but it's awesome. And it's very real. I am super tall. I'm 6'7", 200, just over 200 centimeters for you Euro guys. And yeah, I'm actually planning to ascend much further. I haven't talked about this, but I think I will in the future, and I'll document it. I kind of want to get I say kind of want to. I've planned it. Just need to cut out the time. I'm going to get a palette expander like Hexam Light, and I don't know, maybe other stuff. Because I think I can kind of fraud the side profile with my beard. And you guys, I've been clean shaven before. I've had a mustache before. I've had a big beard before. But when you really talk about facial aesthetics and ratios and your bone structure, and especially my forward growth, my maxillary growth, under eye support, could be a lot better. So I will be hard maxing in the future, and it will be even more so over for everybody else. But I will still be making you smarter and richer, hopefully. Next question. Instead of getting dragged into minute differences between philosophical schools, what consistent patterns do you see across the centuries? Also, how much do you bench, bro? I bench nothing right now. I haven't worked out I can't even say it because I preach physical fitness sometimes. I can't even say it, but it's seasons of your life, okay? It's okay if you don't work out for a certain period. I think that's fine. This season of my life, I've just been locked the fin, working so much, being on my laptop, kind of being a bug man. I've also been traveling and filming videos, and I've been focused more on business, life, getting more followers, that kind of thing. And really the past 6 months to a year of my life, I've had success that people will, I'm not trying to gloat, but I think that that's really important to take a season sometimes where you literally just lock the fuck in. You go crazy. Some days I'm delirious. Like literally right now. I started working at 7:30 this morning and I haven't left my office. I left one time to get a sandwich. Then I got an extra sandwich so I don't have to leave again later. And I don't even know why I'm talking about this, but then just go crazy, go delirious. It's what all the greats did. They sit in their office and or their study or whatever, and you ruminate. You really like just indulge what you're doing in your ideas. And so I don't know why it took so long to answer that question. The most I've ever benched was 285, maybe 295. I don't know if you guys remember, but when I was way chubbier, I was at my heaviest 270 pounds, and I'm like 210 now. I think 275 pounds is like 115 kilos or 116 or something like that. 275, yeah, maybe 118, 120 kilos. Anyway, now if I tried to bench, I think I would struggle with 225 for sure. I think I would maybe even struggle with 200 pounds. And I don't even know, maybe 180. I don't know. I'm so pinned. Like I said, I haven't worked out in 6 months. I barely eat. So yeah, and then now to the proper question. Instead of getting dragged into minute differences between philosophical schools, what consistent patterns do you see across the centuries? Consistent patterns by far, what my whole channel has been about, is elitism. Is that people are innately not equal, genetically, intellectually, and societally. And so that should be a pretty common understanding amongst people. We shouldn't have this idea that, like, again, I'm like harping on voting, but why should everyone vote? I totally understand it in just purely like quality of life or rights or whatever. Yeah, like you should have rights for sure. Maybe you should vote on a council level or a municipal level, maybe even a state level. You know, like, is our state going to join this state? But on a country level, like America, a country of 350 million people, and I've been in these circles, like when I was at CPAC last year or this year. The people that are in the White House, that are in political circles, and not even like crazy billionaires or crazy people that are like actually in the admin, just the people who work in it, who are like the orbiters, they work in companies, or they work in consulting or defense or tech or anything. They are so much smarter than the average person. And I'm not glazing. Maybe it's not even smarter, but like they can speak better, they're more strategic, and they're thinking on such different horizons. They're so much more well-read, more educated, whatever. Like, yeah, you can say that a lot of politicians are like super dumb, but I'd say more so the people that are like around politics, that do business in politics, whatever, just like wicked smart. And they just like, they do what they want to do. And they're just getting around you and most people. Like, it's just a hoop to jump through. Like, oh, this group of people is going to vote here. So anyway. One point there was, I don't actually think it's that rude or that mean or controversial, is like, most people do not have the time to think about foreign issues, to think about economic policy, to think about urban planning, let alone state planning, state infrastructure, where we're going to build railroads, all this shit. So it's like, yeah, you should consult them on a small level, but on state building, like, do you think Otto von Bismarck was asking, do you think Otto von Bismarck was asking the citizens of Prussia, like, should we go to war with Denmark? I mean, maybe he did. Don't base too wrong. Maybe he did. But no, I'm kidding. He didn't. Of course, they didn't have mass suffrage. But it was like, Prussia was a very interesting hybrid model of like having some suffrage and actually quite a lot of rights. They were quite liberal in that way. Great welfare state, because like they cared for their people, but they didn't really listen to their people. That's a different thing. So, you know, I mean, this should just blackpill you enough on this fact. 55% of America is overweight. It's clinically proven, scientifically, biologically, if you are overweight, your brain does not work as well. I'm not even going into the area of vitalism or like viril or a lot of the things people in our space talk about. Literally, just like your brain does not get enough nutrients or gets too much nutrients, and your body can't even function properly. Anyway, okay, I'm getting way off topic. What consistent patterns do you see across the consistent pattern is elitism, aristocracy, and the rule of the few, and the few that are superior over a mass. that is typically extracted, and it's typically of a different character than the aristocracy. That, I think, is the most common thread. Although, another common thread, too, is like the spark of divinity, of human creativity, of flourishing, and one thing that I think is very particularly, I would say, white pilling and interesting, and why I said earlier I think the world might be going in a good direction separately, is because you could call it fake, or you could say that, you know, tech is not real, that coding is like, oh, it's for nerds, it's like you're not building anything physically real. But the dynamism and the energy, and I would literally just say life force. Like we talk about Ray Peat, a lot of new, like, let's say tech entrepreneurs, which would be the pinnacle, like modern man, you might say, of like, oh, we used to have ideals like Otto von Bismarck, and now, or we used to have men to look up to and heroes like Otto von Bismarck, and now we have, you know, I don't know. I'm not going to say Mark Zuckerberg. He's a bad example. He proves that right. But maybe Elon Musk. He does have a tremendous amount of energy and dynamism and actual thought and shaping reality to his will. That's interesting. That's dynamic. And I like that. So, yeah. So to summarize it, elitism and a hierarchy and aristocracy, well, that's three things. And then human and open-mindedness reaching from some people throughout history. Those always exist. So that's maybe why I am white-pilled. Maybe I'm just in a good mood right now. Like I said, I'm a little, that's what gives me hope. Okay. Okay, we already talked about Ernst Junger. How do you see the future of Europe, Western as well as Eastern? That's an interesting question. I mean, I guess it's not that interesting. I'm in Europe right now, or maybe I shouldn't say that, but I spent a lot of time in Europe. And I love it. It's great. It's beautiful. But the nature of Europeans is kind of to go to other places. Like, that's us. You know, that's a lot of your lineage. Go to other places and take it, because we believe it's ours. I'm kidding. But, you know, jokes aside, it's a very innate drive. The political system, societal system of Europe, the second son kind of thing, is I think it's the authoritarian nuclear family. That is what pushed us to colonization, to explore. Not really colonization, but like settlement of these areas, like pilgrims coming over and stuff. So anyways, but the future of Europe as a whole, like migration and blah, 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 I don't actually think that the migration thing is as bad as people make it out to be. Now, I'll preface this by saying it is atrociously bad in certain areas. And it is like on a level that you wouldn't believe, of like cultural and ethnic erasure. But that being said, look at America. Look at Canada. They are way worse. So if you want to say that like America and Europe are not comparable, because Europe was like always European and it's always distinct ethnic these are peoples, and it should be like 100%, or let's say like above 95, 98 of like all Europeans, white people. But then if you're going to paint America in the same frame, or Canada or Australia or any colonial country where you're going to be like, okay, that's a European country settled by Europeans, it should be European. Great, I'm all for it. But like, what are you going to do about 40 million black people? And I'm not coping here and saying like, oh, it's impossible. But I'm more so saying like the American attitude where they're like, Europe is over. A 2,000-year continent is over, and they're ethnically erased and they're being Islamified. It's like boomer slop. It's just not true. And I think there's two ways forward. Here's what will happen in Western Europe. Either the political consciousness will become such that remigration will become inevitable and convenient. And I mean that in the sense of this. It's not going to go the way a lot of you guys think. I don't think that it's going to go in the way of like acceleration and radical actions and radicalized young men making the situation as inhospitable, because that's too hard. States are too strong. It'll be put down. It's very unlikely. And also, a lot of European people and European countries, especially higher earners, but just average people too, they're very democratic, but they don't care about politics at all. They think about voting for 1 week. They make a very trivial decision, again, proving my point about voting, but they make an incredibly inconsequential decision, and they just do not care. But there might reach a point, if it becomes so like expensive, bad for their community specifically, if it becomes so spread out and they start to notice it in cities like Berlin or Amsterdam or Munich or Paris, Like, I mean, those cities, Munich's not that bad, but like, or Amsterdam, but yeah, whatever. There could be a very rational case, like almost a business case for immigration. And I think a lot of the people would actually want to leave. Like a lot of the people that didn't really make it, like that didn't become not even wealthy, but like settled, have a business, whatever. I don't really think, and I know some of them, like I see some when I'm here, and maybe they like own a shop. They literally just do that to like feed their family. So they don't, and they would probably, I actually probably rather go back. Like we forget sometimes, like here's one caveat. Someone from like Senegal or Somalia, that's like crazy. That's a different game. Like the guy who tried to behead a British or Irish guy. That is crazy. And that's like a person that they're never getting acclimated. They're like borderline an animal. That being said, like a Turkish person in Berlin. Turkey was quite a developed country before. Or Iraq, or even Iran, or Afghanistan, or something. Even Morocco in some places. It's not like these people are going back to like tribal warfare in the way that like in Somalia or Senegal or Sudan or Central Africa. These people are like literally fleeing death, which is, I'm not saying that that's like, they should come here. I'm just saying that they are like in a state of fight or flight. Like they'll kill you. But aside from like the younger, maybe more vibrant Muslims, men, I don't really think they're that radicalized in Europe. Although the UK, I think, is different. I think the UK is very different. I don't spend a lot of time there. Although I've been like a couple times this year. No, not a couple times, like a couple times in the past couple of years. So the future of Europe, I don't know. I honestly haven't thought about it that much lately. My brain is fried. So yeah, I think that there's either a rational business case for, oh, no, sorry. I can't remember what I was going to say. What I was going to say is one of two things would happen with like this population of like young people that are becoming a problem. If you close it now and like no more of the constant flow of like the young, new, fleeing a crazy situation, people come. There's only two ways it goes. Either these people like smarten up, like they lock in and the population becomes okay with them being here. But it's trending, like again, you can't be like a trapper when you're 40 or 50. You can't be stabbing people when you're 40 or 50. You can't be like, stealing scooters and shit when you're that old. Likely, like they have to like integrate and get jobs, which in that case, there's no hope. Like regular normal people vote to like kick out their Turkish neighbor or their Moroccan neighbor or whatever. I'm not even saying it's their neighbor, but they won't even vote to like kick the people out of the slums, out of the country. They're just like too empathetic and they don't care. But if it gets worse and worse and worse, like a very rational overturn and probably hordes will go back. And I do, I'm white-pilled. I do think that Europe will persevere. More so, I think European people will persevere. I don't know if they'll be here, but I do for sure believe, and that's why I'm not that worried about it. I'm not that anxious about it. I think, well, okay, that's not me like saying it's not an issue politically, ideologically, whatever. Let's make that statement. It's not me saying it's not real, that we don't want remigration, whatever. I know all those guys, etc. But it's not like every single one is going to go extinct. Like you're going to see a white person in a museum and it's going to be like, oh my gosh. I'll tell you what, I'm not fucking leaving. They're not going to get me. So as long as I'm alive, I'll pop up with some babies. I'll get us back going. So anyway, sorry. Western as well as Eastern. Eastern Europe. I actually studied Russian for 3 years. True jack of all trades. Я говорю по-русски немного. Меня зовут Jack Gordonov. I'm going to cut out the middle name of that. That's a bit of a dox. Я люблю машиной. All I can remember. Eastern Europe. Yeah, twin. I don't know about Eastern Europe. That's like basically Asia. I'm kidding. But I don't know. I'm not going to give you much info there. Eastern Europe will continue being whatever they are. Like Russia got totally looted and basically got their booty clapped for like 20 years after the Soviet Union. And they're kind of like the same thing now that they were in the Soviet Union. So, what are you going to do? They'll persevere. They'll just eat like cold soup or something. Will you cover repeat in the future? Yes, 100%. I would love to. I read Restoring the Wholeness of Life. Restoring the Wholeness of Life and Energy. I think it's Restoring the Wholeness of Life. But Yeah, I love bioenergetics. I love Ray Peat. I read the book on the plane, and then I read Nutrition for Women. I thought it was really, really good and super cool. Yeah, so I will be covering Ray Peat. I actually eat he totally changed my perspective on diet. It was very like primal, raw sort of vibe. But I really respect it. It's like very scientific, but not dogmatic. And yeah, like how he talks about Descartes and not Descartes, sorry, but the other French scientist at the time, I can't remember, but human creativity and energy being the bait. Like we want an excess of energy. We want high energy, low stress states. And that's where divinity really comes into humanity, and we can progress and evolve. At the end of the day, I want evolution, like I said. The Ubermensch. How is life, new question, how is life as the most intellectual chat on this platform? Life is great. I'm a little stressed. Sorry, Pete. I'm not never stressing. I try to, but I think I stress about like real things. But it's, life is good. Yeah, it's great. Working super hard towards things that I absolutely love, and they're being super fruitful, and this is just the beginning. So I'm very happy with my life and being the most intellectual chat on this platform. You know, I almost want to, I love that. Thank you for calling me that, but I almost like wish I was something else. Like, yeah, I truly want to be a jack of all trades. I want to be a polymath. I want to be a Renaissance man. I want to have everything. I want wealth, intellect, wisdom, power, looks, beauty, aesthetics, etc. So it's not just intellect, but thank you for the compliment. Do you think YouTube shadow bans your content / account? The quality of your videos versus the view and sub count just doesn't make sense. Yeah, I do think I make really high quality videos. I think they're great, like mini docs almost. I've always loved making videos, but yeah, I'd probably get shadow banned, but I'm climbing my way out of it. And shadow banning is not really that real, because if you make consistently really good content for a long time, you'll just grow. You'll grow great, but you'll still grow a huge following that eventually you'll just have a viewer base, and you'll start to get pushed out more in recommendations. And especially, I'm not gonna angle. I look so bad, but yeah, you get, clipped, and people start to know you. And so even if you don't get growth like from YouTube organically, you'll still get it elsewhere. Okay, I got to talk really quickly. Okay, I'm gonna make another video where I talk about the bookstore, because yeah, I just made shirts. They're super hard. I'm gonna like give them away to everyone in the niche. I'm gonna give a bunch away to you guys. And I'll make a post about what that's gonna be about and how you go those. Yeah, real quick, if you buy books or you buy a shirt, I'm gonna try this out. If you DM me about it, or you just post a video or something. Anyway, I'll be concise. If you buy anything on the store and you get over, let's say, 10,000 views, I will give you a 50% refund on whatever it is. If you get over 100,000 views, I'll fully refund your order, even if it's $500. That would suck. Like, please, like if you're a content creator, don't do that, because yeah, if you have like 100,000 followers, then 100K is nothing. So yeah, don't. But for anyone else, we're gonna do that. And yeah, and if you have any other interesting ideas, shoot them over to me. And yeah, go to the ritebooks.com. I'm gonna be launching the shirt soon, and we'll be doing some guerrilla marketing to get it out there. So will I be writing a book myself is the last question. You'll just have to wait and see. Thanks.